"Robert, you're fired effective this month. It's a shame as you were so close to retirement, isn't it?" In utter confusion, I took the slip of paper from manager Sarah. The document had dismissal notice, written in large letters with the president's seal firmly stamped on it. When I asked for the reason, she began to boast. "Why, because you're utterly incompetent, of course. I reported the recent events and your behavior to the president, consulted with him, and he decided to fire you, though he seemed a bit disappointed." In shock, I stared at the dismissal notice, hanging my head. "I'm finally relieved to get rid of a useless person like you. I've arranged for you to use your remaining vacation days starting today, so pack up your things and leave. Incompetence ruins the company." At that moment, all the frustrations I had been holding back started to overflow. "Understood. I'll be leaving then, so long, and thanks for the lesson." With that, I began to quickly pack my things right in front of manager Sarah's eyes. When I got home, I secretly vowed revenge. My name is Robert Johnson, 62 years old. I currently work as a section chief in the sales department of a small beverage company, Fine Beverage Co. Since childhood, I've been interested in most things, drifting through life without a passion during my school years. Following my parents' advice, I enrolled in a local university, attended classes, and went straight home for 4 years without joining any clubs. When the job hunt started, I didn't have any particular job in mind. So I applied to every company that caught my eye and eventually received a job offer from one. That company was Fine Beverage Co., where I still work today. Upon graduating from college and joining the company, I was assigned to the sales department and learned the ropes from my seniors. At first, I was desperate to learn the job and was frustrated daily because it was filled with tedious tasks. However, as I got used to the work, I began to feel a spark that I had never experienced before and started to actively engage in my tasks. I proactively visited many companies and diligently completed administrative tasks, consistently ranking at the top in sales performance and gaining the trust of my colleagues. Realizing that this spark was actually a sense of fulfillment, I became passionately involved in my work and looked forward to going to the office every morning, enjoying each day. As I continued to excel at my job, I eventually became respected by my juniors and peers as a capable employee and earned recognition from my superiors. A few years later, I married a woman from the same workplace, and our son, David, was born the following year. From being indifferent to most things, I was now able to experience fulfillment and joy, both at work and at home. Feeling that all this happiness was thanks to Fine Beverage Co., I decided to work diligently to repay the company for everything it had done for me. Decades have passed, and now I am entrusted with the position of section chief, leading the sales department alongside my superiors and enjoying my work. My son, David, has grown into a respectable adult and established his own company, inspired by my enjoyment of work. Though Fine Beverage Co. was entirely bought out by its rival, a large beverage manufacturer named Johnson Holdings, and became a subsidiary, I continued my work unchanged. Determined not to be outdone by David, I motivated myself daily, planning to enjoy my job to the fullest until retirement. One day, a few days after the sales department manager retired, a new manager was transferred from another company. Her name was Sarah Brown, and she was said to be an excellent and capable woman. She is beautiful but known to be strict at work, and if there was even a slight mistake, she would mercilessly yell at the person. In her previous company, she was called the Demon Lady Manager, so we listened to her greeting nervously. After her introduction and the morning meeting ended, everyone began their work. As I was preparing for my sales rounds, Manager Sarah suddenly stopped me, causing me to tense up with nervousness. "You must be Robert, the section chief, right? Nice to meet you." To my surprise, she spoke to me in a friendly manner, and after a moment of relief, I responded similarly. Nice to meet you too. If you need anything, feel free to ask. However, her smile quickly vanished, and she looked displeased, furrowing her brows. What? From you? Absolutely not. I wouldn't bother consulting a veteran like you, Robert. And still being a section chief at your age, you must be quite incompetent. Don't act so high and mighty. With that, Manager Sarah returned to her desk, looking annoyed. I was stunned by her disdain at our first meeting. However, I quickly pulled myself together, finished my sales preparations, and headed out, trying to forget the incident. When I returned to the office in the afternoon, Manager Sarah was working as if nothing had happened, not even glancing at me. I was relieved to know that I hadn't angered her, but it seemed she had secretly taken notice of me. From then on, every time she saw me, Manager Sarah would look down on me daily. Even though I was just doing my job as usual, she frequently said things like, "Do your job properly, old man." And if I took even a short break, she would yell, "Don't slack off." She treated other employees the same way, and her shouts echoed through the sales department daily. The demon lady manager had awakened early on, and I felt anxious about the future of the sales department, holding my head in my hands. A few days passed, but Manager Sarah's harassment didn't stop. It only worsened. When I submitted completed documents, she would mock them, saying, "What an outdated style." Or if she was in a bad mood, she would return them, saying, "I don't like your taste, redo it." Still, I didn't let Manager Sarah defeat me and focused on my work, fully utilizing my years of experience and skills. By making no small mistakes and meeting her demands, I showed my capability, leaving her unable to give any instructions and visibly dissatisfied. A few more days passed, and while I was working as usual, Manager Sarah suddenly assigned me an urgent task. It seemed another employee had been working on it but couldn't meet the deadline, so she decided to hand it over to me. "This needs to be submitted tomorrow, so make sure it's done by then. You're supposedly capable despite your appearances, so you can do it, right?" Her condescending tone irritated me, but I agreed, sure, and prioritized the urgent task. The next day, after completing the documents, I promptly submitted them to Manager Sarah. The documents were approved, and I returned to my other tasks with a sense of relief. The next morning, as I arrived at work as usual, Manager Sarah, who was already there, stormed towards me with a furious expression. She held the documents I submitted yesterday and shoved them in front of me, looking confused. "The documents you made yesterday? What's this, full of mistakes?" When I sent them to the client, they got mad and asked, "What are you doing?" Apparently, Manager Sarah had sent the documents to the client immediately after they were completed. But early this morning, she received a call pointing out the errors and was scolded. Though shaken, I checked the documents she thrust at me. Sure enough, there were parts where the client's requests were not reflected, and the graphs and text were hard to read. However, those sections were handled by another employee who worked on them before me. Ideally, that employee should be the one to receive this feedback, but Manager Sarah scolds indiscriminately and harshly. I decided to take the blame for now and point out the issues later. I braced myself and apologized profusely to Manager Sarah. Immediately, she started smirking and unleashed a torrent of insults. "You can't even handle such a simple task. You really are incompetent, useless. Redo it by noon today. If you anger me again, I'll put you by the window." As I listened to Manager Sarah's words, I complained inwardly. Why do I have to be scolded so harshly? After all, Manager Sarah had reviewed and approved the completed documents. Isn't it unreasonable for her to blame only me when she also missed the mistakes? Despite these thoughts, I held back my frustration to avoid speaking out and managed to get through the situation. Once a satisfied Manager Sarah returned to her desk in a better mood. I sighed deeply and hurriedly set about redoing the documents. I finished the documents just before noon and, determined to have them properly checked this time, moved on to the other tasks I had previously set aside. For several days, I was stuck in the department, working late hours, which accumulated fatigue and gradually lowered my work efficiency. However, I persevered and, a few days later, completed all the remaining tasks. With a sigh of relief, I thought, it's been a while since I went on a sales round, and started preparing after the morning meeting. Just as I was about to leave the department, Manager Sarah suddenly stood in front of me, holding a piece of paper. "Robert, you're fired effective this month. It's a shame as you were so close to retirement, isn't it?" In utter confusion, I took the slip of paper from Manager Sarah. The document had dismissal notice, written in large letters, with the president's seal firmly stamped on it. The surrounding employees, who had overheard, were also unable to hide their surprise, and the office was in an uproar. "Why am I being fired?" When I asked for the reason, she began to boast. "Why? Because you're utterly incompetent, of course. I reported the recent events and your behavior to the president. He decided to fire you, albeit reluctantly." She explained that she had informed the president about the mistakes in the documents I submitted, which angered the client. Additionally, she mentioned that I had been exhausted from working overtime and my efficiency had dropped, framing it as a lack of motivation. The president believed everything she said and, after some thought, decided to fire me. He trusted the recently appointed manager Sarah over me. Despite my 40 years of dedicated service and contributions to the company. In shock, I stared at the dismissal notice, my head hanging low. Manager Sarah seemed to find my sadness amusing and continued to taunt me. "I'm finally relieved to get rid of a useless person like you. I arranged for you to use your remaining vacation days starting today, so pack up and leave. Incompetence ruins the company." She waved her hand at me dismissively, as if shooing away a pest. At that moment, all the frustrations I had been holding back began to overflow. Struggling to maintain my composure, I calmly accepted the dismissal. "I appreciate the learning experience. I'll leave immediately, goodbye." With that, I quickly started packing my things right in front of Manager Sarah. Once ready, I said hi to the employees in the department and quickly left the sales office. She kept smiling smugly the whole time, but I paid her no mind as I left the company. When I got home, I secretly vowed revenge. 2 weeks had passed since I was fired from the company. I had been taking it easy at home, trying to recover from all the work stress. As I turned on the TV to watch a movie while drinking coffee, the news was reporting an event. It was about Johnson Holdings, the parent company of Fine Beverage Co., holding a shareholders meeting today to report various matters. Johnson Holdings is a well-known major corporation, overseeing various beverage manufacturers and recently boosting its performance by acquiring rival companies. Thinking, finally, I changed the channel and started watching a rerun of a movie. After watching 2 movies, I decided to take a break and go out for a meal when my phone suddenly rang. Though it was an unfamiliar number, I had a feeling about who it was, so I answered it. As I suspected, it was Manager Sarah. "What's going on? You did something, didn't you?" She was so angry and agitated that she didn't listen to my response and started explaining the situation on her own. Manager Sarah had attended the shareholders meeting today and listened to the report from the representative of Johnson Holdings. Partway through, the topic shifted to Fine Beverage Co., and they specifically mentioned Manager Sarah announcing her dismissal. "Why are you calling me about this?" I asked deliberately, and Manager Sarah, furious, got straight to the point. "Don't play dumb. The representative of Johnson Holdings is your son, David Johnson. I heard him confess it himself, so I know." I muttered, "Oh, you found out," and admitted that she was right. Indeed, the representative of Johnson Holdings was my son, and it was I who urged him to fire her. David, inspired by my enjoyment of work, started a small beverage company with his friends after graduating from college. He had an incredible talent, efficiently handling sales, acquiring customers, and producing high-quality, popular products while actively promoting them. The company quickly grew into a major corporation, surprising everyone with its rapid success, and even became a hot topic on TV for a while. David continued to aggressively expand his business, establishing several related companies and transforming the headquarters into a holding company. Recently, he had been increasing profits by acquiring rival companies and bringing them under his umbrella. A few months before manager Sarah was transferred, David had directly consulted me about acquiring Fine Beverage Co. "Dad, your company's sales are pretty good. I'd love for our company to acquire it. What do you think?" I wholeheartedly agreed with his proposal. David quickly decided to proceed with the acquisition, and within a month, with the then president's consent, Fine Beverage Co. became a subsidiary of Johnson Holdings. After manager Sarah's appointment, I endured her constant taunts and insults, venting my frustrations to David every time. I explained that the other employees were experiencing the same treatment and were working in fear. David assured me he would address it soon. On the day I was fired, I called David and confessed what had happened. I explained how manager Sarah had set me up and how the president had betrayed me. And David was furious, as if it had happened to him. "It's such a good company, but with employees and a president like that, it'll really go downhill in a few years. I'll take an immediate action." Taking the situation seriously, David immediately went to Fine Beverage Co. He confronted the president about firing me, and the president admitted, "I was swayed by Sarah." Apparently, manager Sarah had manipulated the president, who regretted his decision ever since. David announced he would address the issue at the next shareholders' meeting. However, the president deeply regretted unjustly firing me and offered to resign, quietly leaving the company the next day. When I explained all this, she raised her voice even more, reporting about me. "That's a dirty trick. And why am I the one getting fired?" "I just gave a little bit tough guidance and requested the president to fire you. Is this the appropriate action?" the representative mentioned. Manager Sarah continued to threaten me, but something felt off. "Wait, you haven't heard the other reasons for your dismissal. You weren't fired just for that," she replied angrily. "What?" and acted as if she didn't know. It seemed manager Sarah had left the shareholders' meeting midway and returned to the sales department. I explained to her the real reason for her dismissal that she should have heard from David. "Manager Sarah, it seems you've been selling company information, haven't you? I got this information from an employee at a rival company." I was shocked when I first heard it. Gulp. Manager Sarah's reaction was visibly shaken. "Recently, a friend who works at a rival company treated me to a drink to console me after I was fired. As I vented about manager Sarah, my friend reacted and started telling me a story. That manager Sarah you mentioned might be the person meeting with my colleague to trade company information. According to my friend, one evening when he was working late alone, a colleague who had come back to pick up something asked for his advice. The colleague explained that a woman named Sarah from a rival company had approached him with a proposal to exchange company information. He initially refused, but eventually got persuaded, and they started exchanging information. Over time, their relationship evolved to include monetary transactions, creating a situation where they couldn't back out. If the company discovered they were trading information, it wouldn't just end in dismissal." Feeling trapped, the colleague confided in my friend when they were alone. Hearing this, I immediately suspected it was manager Sarah and got my friend and his colleague to help gather evidence. Upon reviewing photos and recorded audio, it was clear she was indeed the culprit. I had reported all this to David on the day I was fired. "The shareholders' meeting is still ongoing, right? David is probably explaining all your wrongdoings to the attendees right now. I also handed over the photo and audio evidence, so by now, everyone is probably frantically searching for you." I said this partly to scare her, and manager Sarah was visibly shaken. The original plan was for David to call her out and expose her misdeeds in front of everyone after the shareholders' meeting. However, after being fired by David and discovering his identity, she couldn't handle the atmosphere and her anger at me, so she stormed out midway. Still, her absence didn't disrupt the plan much. Given the time, the meeting was likely ending, and the directors were probably looking for her to understand the situation. As I smirked in satisfaction, Manager Sarah suddenly began speaking in a sweet, cajoling tone. "Hey, Robert, if the directors come looking for me, could you please testify over the phone that the representative's statements at the shareholders' meeting were all lies? I'll make it worth your while, okay?" Her obvious attempt at bribery sent a chill down my spine. She had likely manipulated the president and my friend's colleague the same way, but it had no effect on me. After all the ridicule, now you ask for a favor. Maybe that approach worked for you before, but not this time. Is that how you earned the reputation of being a competent woman? Returning her taunts, Manager Sarah groaned in frustration and loudly retorted, "That's not true. I've always risen through the ranks on my own merit. Don't underestimate me just because you're an old man who got fired." Her loud voice must have given away her location, as voices of people, likely the directors, could be heard behind her. "Marley Executive, Manager Sarah, please come to the president's office immediately. We need to discuss the information trading issue revealed at the shareholders' meeting. President Johnson is also waiting." Despite her panic, Manager Sarah desperately tries to prove her innocence. She begins to forcefully execute the plan she had proposed to me earlier. "I'm on the phone with Robert, the informant, right now. He says all the information about me is a misunderstanding. He will testify right away, so listen carefully." She turns on her phone speaker, adjusting the volume so my voice can be heard throughout the department. "Now, Robert, you know what to do, right? Testify as we discussed." Manager Sarah indirectly prompts me to testify that it was all a lie. Who would follow such instructions? I began to speak honestly without hesitation. Yes, the statements made by President Johnson at the shareholders' meeting are all true. I collected the evidence myself, so there's no mistake. After my testimony, Manager Sarah screamed and started to lose control. "What are you saying? That's not what we agreed on. Can't you follow the instructions of your manager? Testify that it was a lie, you useless fool." "There was no agreement to testify conveniently, and you are no longer my manager. As for being useless, I consider myself quite effective for having cornered you like this. What do you think?" I countered swiftly, causing her to scream again in frustration. The executives, who had heard my testimony and Manager Sarah's abusive remarks, immediately restrained her and took her to the president's office, cutting off the call. After hanging up, I took a deep breath and went out to enjoy the meal I had missed. Later, I learned that Manager Sarah was questioned in detail about her misdeeds by the executives and David, but she steadfastly denied everything. Since this got nowhere, David conducted an internal investigation and interviewed my friend's colleague, who was directly involved. Several employees had seen Manager Sarah meeting with my friend's colleague. Additionally, the colleague confessed everything, leading both companies to file criminal complaints. Manager Sarah and my friend's colleague were arrested for embezzlement and spent some time in prison. The colleague was fired while in prison, faced a damages lawsuit, and now works a live-in part-time job to gradually repay his debts. Similarly, Manager Sarah was fired and faced a large damages lawsuit. She tried to find a new job after her release, but was unsuccessful due to the widespread news coverage of the scandal. In an attempt to quickly repay her debt, she tried to start working night jobs, but was rejected everywhere due to her age, nearing her 50s. Ultimately, she started working as a cashier at a supermarket during the day and at a restaurant at night. However, even there, people knew about the scandal. Stories about her trading information through seduction, verbally abusing employees, and being decisively brought down by a subordinate she had looked down on had spread. For someone as proud as Sarah, this must have been a living hell, but she didn't have the luxury of giving up. Needing to repay her debt as soon as possible, she endured it and continues to work diligently to this day. As for me, after Sarah's arrest, David arranged for me to return to the company, and I continued working until retirement. Additionally, it was decided that I would take over as manager in place of Sarah, and now I am doing my best to lead the employees. Since the previous president stepped down, a new female president hired by Johnson Holdings took over. The new president is very competent and cares deeply about the employees. I believe she will significantly grow Fine Beverage Co. Although I will retire in a few years and won't be able to witness the company's future firsthand, I want to support it from behind the scenes. In the meantime, I intend to contribute as much as possible during my remaining time for the sake of the next generation and the company.